What if the biggest Charlie Woods moment of 2026 wasn't a trophy, but a moment when almost everyone thought his tournament was already over? Because that's exactly what made this story so surprising. Charlie Woods arrived at the U.S. Junior Amateur, carrying enormous expectations. His last two appearances had ended before match play, and once again, every shot was being watched. Then the tournament started badly. Very badly. Charlie went 6 over par through his first 5 holes. At that point, it would have been easy to assume the story was finished. But something happened next. Instead of collapsing, Charlie fought his way back. He stabilized his round, finished the opening day with a 76, and then came back the following day with an even par 70, his lowest ever round at the U.S. Junior Amateur. Suddenly, the player who looked almost finished was alive again. And then came the playoff. 14 players, 2 spots, 1 chance. What happened next turned Charlie's tournament into one of the most talked about moments of his 2026 season. And the most interesting part isn't even the ending. It's what Charlie showed before it. If you truly love golf, if you enjoy watching the next generation of players develop, and if stories like Charlie Wood's journey keep you coming back to the game, make sure you subscribe and become part of this golf family. Because Charlie's story is still being written, and the next chapter could be very different. Charlie Woods has probably never played a normal round of competitive golf. For most 17-year-old golfers, a bad start is just a bad start. For Charlie, every bad start happens under a microscope. Every birdie creates a headline. Every bogey creates a debate. And every tournament becomes another opportunity for people to ask the same question. Can Charlie Woods really become a major name in golf? That's a huge question for any young player. But Charlie has something most of them don't have. His last name, Woods, a name that has already defined an entire generation of golf. His father won the U.S. Junior Amateur 3 straight times. He became one of the greatest players in golf history. So naturally, people look at Charlie and wonder whether history might somehow repeat itself. But golf doesn't work that way. Charlie doesn't get to start his career at the finish line. He has to build his own game. And in 2026, we saw one of the clearest examples yet of how that process is unfolding. At the U.S. Junior Amateur, Charlie was making his 3rd consecutive appearance. In his first 2 appearances, he had failed to reach match play. This time, he needed something different. And his first few holes looked like the worst possible start. A bogey, then a triple bogey, then more trouble. After 5 holes, Charlie was 6 over par. 6 over. 5 holes into a championship. For a young golfer, that kind of start can completely change the mindset. You stop thinking about birdies. You start thinking about damage control. You start trying not to make the next mistake. And once that happens, golf can become incredibly difficult. But here's the part nobody talks about enough. Charlie didn't let the first 5 holes become the entire round. He settled down. He started making pars. He found a couple of birdies. And suddenly, the disaster wasn't quite as disastrous as it looked. He played the final 13 holes 1 under par and finished with a 5 over 76. It wasn't a great score, but considering where he had been, it was a recovery, and that recovery mattered. Because the next day, Charlie had another opportunity, and this time, he played like a completely different golfer. He shot an even par 70. The round included an eagle, 2 birdies, and 11 pars. More importantly, it was his lowest ever round at the U.S. Junior Amateur. And suddenly, something that had looked almost impossible was happening. Charlie was still alive. But wait, because this is where the pressure became completely different. After 36 holes, Charlie was 5 over par. That put him tied for 63rd. Normally, that sounds like the end of the story. But the U.S. Junior Amateur only takes the top 64 players into match play. And because 14 players were tied for those final positions, Charlie wasn't simply advancing. He had to survive a playoff. 14 golfers. Only 2 spots. 1 hole at a time. Now imagine the pressure. You have spent 2 days trying to survive. You have fought back from a terrible start. You have finally reached the position you needed. And now the entire tournament comes down to 1 playoff. This is where golf becomes more than technique. It's mental. It's emotional. It's about controlling your breathing, controlling your thoughts, and trusting the swing you've repeated thousands of times. Charlie returned the next morning knowing exactly what he needed. A birdie. The first playoff hole was a par 5, and Charlie had a chance. His second shot went toward the green, but finished in the rough. Then came the moment that made the situation even more frustrating. During his next shot, a camera phone made a clicking sound during his backswing. Charlie hit a poor shot and immediately showed his frustration. Really, dude? The moment was caught on video and quickly became part of the story. But here's the important thing. Charlie still had a chance. He wasn't eliminated yet. He needed to recover. He needed the birdie. And this is where everything changed again. His birdie attempt didn't fall. Charlie made bogey. And that was enough to end his U.S. Junior Amateur run. 14 players had arrived. Only 2 would advance. Charlie wasn't one of them. It was heartbreaking, but it was also revealing. Because if you only look at the final result, you miss what happened before it. Charlie didn't make match play, but he got closer than he had in his previous 2 appearances. In 2024, he opened with an 82 and followed it with an 80. In 2025, he shot 81 and then 74. In 2026, those scores became 76 and 70. That's not a championship, but it's measurable progress. And for a young golfer, progress matters, especially when you're developing under this much pressure. But Charlie's 2026 story didn't end with the U.S. Junior Amateur. At the Junior PGA Championship, he again showed flashes of improvement. He opened with a 75. Then he responded with a 70 and made the 36-hole cut. But once again, consistency became the challenge. Charlie shot 77 in the 3rd round and missed the 54-hole cut. He finished 6 over par for the tournament. And that's an important part of Charlie's development. Because talent can produce one great round. Potential can produce a spectacular shot. But championship golf demands 4 good rounds. Then another tournament. Then another. Then another. Consistency is what separates a player who can flash brilliance from a player who can repeatedly compete at the highest level. And Charlie is still learning that part. That doesn't mean he has failed. It means he's 17. He's still developing. And his future is already taking shape. Charlie has committed to play college golf at Florida State beginning in 2027. That next chapter could be extremely important because college golf will give him a completely different environment. New opponents, new courses, new teammates, and new pressure. But most importantly, more time. Time to build his body. Time to develop his short game. Time to become more consistent. Time to learn how to turn a good round into a tournament-winning round. And maybe that's what fans should really be watching. Not whether Charlie looks exactly like Tiger. Not whether he wins every junior event. Not whether every tournament becomes a viral moment. Instead, watch the details. How does he respond after a double bogey? Does he stay aggressive? Does he trust his swing? Does his putting become more consistent? Does he start turning those 70s into rounds in the 60s? Those are the questions that could tell us where his career is heading. And there's another reason Charlie's story is so interesting. He has to learn how to separate the name from the player. Because eventually, when he walks onto a college golf course, his opponents aren't going to care that he's Tiger Woods' son. They're going to care about the number on the scoreboard. They're going to try to beat him. They're going to put pressure on him. They're going to challenge him. And Charlie will have to answer with his own game. That's when we may really discover who Charlie Woods is as a golfer. Not Tiger's son. Not a viral name. Not a headline. Charlie Woods. And perhaps the setbacks of 2026 are exactly what he needs. Because the easiest lessons in golf come when everything is going well. The hardest lessons come when you're 6 over through 5 holes. When you fought back. When you're finally one step away. And then one shot goes wrong. That's golf. Sometimes you hit the perfect drive and make bogey. Sometimes you hit a terrible shot and somehow save par. Sometimes you play your best golf and still lose. And sometimes a tournament that ends in disappointment becomes the tournament you remember years later. Because it taught you something. That's why Charlie's 2026 story shouldn't simply be viewed as a missed opportunity. It can be viewed as another piece of his development. He has already experienced pressure. He has already experienced disappointment. He's already shown that he can fight back. Now the next challenge is turning those lessons into consistency. And that is where the future becomes exciting. Because Charlie is still young. He doesn't need to become Tiger Woods tomorrow. He doesn't need to win every tournament. He doesn't need to satisfy every expectation. He needs to keep improving. One tournament at a time. One round at a time. One shot at a time. And if he does that, the big moment everyone is waiting for could eventually arrive. Maybe it won't happen this year. Maybe it won't happen next year. But when Charlie Woods finally wins a major championship of his own, the meaning of that moment will come from everything that happened before it. The bad starts. The missed cuts, the playoff losses, the pressure, the criticism, the comebacks, all of it. And that's why Charlie Woods shocked the golf world in 2026 in a different way than many people expected. Not because he suddenly became Tiger Woods, but because, when his tournament looked finished, he refused to let it end there. He fought back. He stayed alive. He earned another chance. And even though the final result wasn't the trophy everyone wanted to see, the performance showed something that could matter much more in the long run. Resilience. And maybe that's the beginning of something. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Do you think Charlie Woods is genuinely getting closer to his breakthrough? Or does he still need several more years of development before he can become a championship-level golfer? Tell me your prediction in the comments. And if you want to follow Charlie's journey from these early struggles to whatever comes next, stay with us. Because golf isn't always about watching someone lift a trophy. Sometimes